Okay, Dennis Young here, Primitive Substance Series 2, and we got a special guest all the way from Berlin, Germany, Bernhard Wöstheinrich. How's that?
Wöstheinrich.
Pronounce it right?
Yeah, that was great. Thank
Fantastic.
you.
Nice to see
Yeah.
you, Bernhard. So let's go back to your early beginnings of when you got interested in music and go from there.
Well, yeah.
And creating music.
Pardon? Say it again.
Like, yeah, how you got interested in music, then creating it, and
Well,
some great.
let me think. I mean, like, I was like, it was like around the time. I think I don't know what the equivalent like is in the US, like the high school or something. So I was like, you know, so the school that prepares you for the university, so to say.
Right.
Uh, in that time, I started to think like doing more like artistic stuff, just like for my own or for its own sake, so to say. And while I was experimenting with like drawing and painting and all this kind of stuff, I realized that I'm a music fan. So I was like, yeah, actually, music is the thing. And what always like kind of fascinated me, like with music or musicians, was like that they were actually working in time. So they had this one chance to do something, and
Right.
then they would put like everything into this one moment to create this unique musical experience. And uh, and then and I was kind of encouraged because back in the days there were like a lot of experimental bands. Like I don't know if you ever heard about this German band Einstürzende Neubauten, collapsing new buildings. It's a
Briefly, I'm a little bit. I'm not too aware of them too much.
Yeah, so they're like actually they're just doing noise. There's just a band, and they're just all kind of like non-musicians. I mean, with all due to
Okay.
respect, I'm not saying that they don't know what they're doing. They're like real great artists, but so
Right.
they just started out like with stuff. They experimented, and
Right.
before that, I always thought like musicianship is like very close to magicianship, sorcerer
Yeah,
like.
that's true.
And I was like
You don't need
so
an
full of
instrument. You don't need
um
an instrument really to create good music. Even noise, it could be really good or bad. But when it's good, it can be really interesting. So go ahead.
indeed, indeed. And like and I grew up with all those like really great bands. So I have like five older siblings, and then most of them they were like really into music, and I inherited like a great collection of vinyls. And like in this collection there were like all these great records like Genesis, Pink Floyd, Yes,
Of course.
Gentle Giant, King Crimson, and like of course one of my super favorites is like Mike Oldfield,
Oh,
and
love
so
them.
on. And then I came into fusion rock and all this kind of stuff, right? and
Yeah.
and these musicians are really outstandingly good, and I couldn't even see like myself being with those people. I was like, what they do is like so kind of like not comprehensible for
Yeah.
me. Like I can
Hazy.
only so. And
Yeah.
I was so full of respect. And then all those kind of experimental bands came up, and they were like, yeah, we don't care, we just do it, we do our stuff anyways.
Right.
And this kind of encouraged me to just experiment myself. And it happens to be that I kind of got some like funny electronic, more like toys, you know.
Right.
And one of those things, for example, this was like this legendary Casio SK1. So it
Oh
had like a
yeah. I've
very,
heard of
very
that.
limited. It just came out in that time, and somebody like my older brother, he gave it to me. I don't know where he had it from, and he was like, so I went up to him, and he already were in a band. He was in a band, and I was
Uh,
like, can you borrow me some instruments? So I mean, I was able to play like basic patterns on a drum kit or something, and I was like thinking to get more into that. And I always liked bass guitars, and I was like, yeah, bass guitar is easy. I can always play just the E string, and then something nice will come out.
right. Right.
And my brother was like, yeah, no, so the drums were like really collapsed, so they were just destroyed. They were just, a pile of crap. And the bass guitar he couldn't give me because he needed himself. And then he was like giving me or passing me over some old electronic stuff.
Right.
And I brought it back home, and it took me about, like, I don't know, a week or something to get a sound out of it. Like I didn't manage to get like any sound out of it. So I really had to study like well, there weren't any manuals actually, so I just had to experiment, and then it just started out.
I listened to a lot of your music. It's beautiful. Now, are these the hardware synthesizers you play, or are they a lot of it software off your laptop and then through a keyboard? Is that some of how you play live or play in the studio?
Well, I must admit that like the super biggest part of like my kit just consists of software. I have like so this computer right here I'm sitting on is a very capable one. I just make sure, and it's not too big though. So because I don't know, a couple of years ago, might be like already 2005, 6 something, I realized if I would ever, I mean, like I was always dreaming to just play a little bit more and like in different places. And like in the beginning of the 2000, it was the first time I ever made it to the US together with Markus Reuter. And I had to borrow me like all the stuff. So I brought like a small drum machine. This was all I could bring, and the rest I had to borrow.
Okay.
And then coming back from that, I realized I kind of had to reduce my stuff. I mean, I saw like all the other musicians, like Markus, for example, like he had like always a guitar on his back and some stuff in like somewhere else. I mean, the guitar is very clunky, obviously, but it was still better than what I had, and I know that many electronic musicians, they are very much into this kind of modular stuff and like those big synthesizers, and I absolutely get it. But once you understand that like traveling is also a part of being a musician, so the whole thing just completely disappeared. And then the final thing, which really made me to get rid of like the biggest part of all my hardware, was like when I moved from the countryside to here to Berlin. And like back in the days, I lived on a farm, in a farmhouse, in my parents' farmhouse, and like I was living in like 1/3 of the old, defunct farmhouse.
Right.
It was like I had like a massive amount of space on my own, and I could just have some stuff standing around. But then moving to Berlin, I understood that this is not an option. So and then I also realized that I don't need all this kind of stuff. Look what I have here. Like, I mean, this is now people might now say this is like really exaggerating, but so sometimes this is also my workplace where I do like my daily work. But sometimes when I go to start to have to work on musical projects and I have to grab me a keyboard, so it's all like behind this white wall here, right?
Oh, okay.
But sometimes I'm just too lazy, and then I just use this here, and it's just, and it's okay.
Right? So how did you meet Markus? I mean, because he's an amazing musician, and he's playing with the top of the line guys, Tony Levin and Pat. So how did you meet Markus?
Yeah, that was a funny story. So I was actually already done with my studies. So I studied graphic design. And back in the days, it was like 1995 something, must have been like fall 1995 or something. I started to apply for jobs, right? So and in order to do that, you have to have like a CV and stuff and like some examples of your work. So obviously when you're done with your studies, you didn't have like a lot of work done yet, so you couldn't show a lot of examples. So what I did, I just created some, I just made some like made up jobs, and put together like a nice presentation.
Okay.
So, and this was 1995, as I said, and back in the days, like good color printers, they were like still very, seldom, and you really had to look after them. And back in the days, in our university, in the school, we had one. So there was this one room, and I still had like this card which enabled me to do some prints there. So I wasn't a student officially anymore, but I could still go into there and like use up my last prints, right?
Right.
So, and also printing was like sort of a time consuming thing. So like the computers were slow, and the color printer, they took up like a lot of like calculating time, and you just had to wait. If somebody was in front of you, you just had to wait. So I was waiting in line and seeing what coming out of the color printer, and then the guy who was printing before me they were like, obviously he was making some sort of a demo tape cover. It looked very interesting, but which really rose my interest there was like the description of gear that was on the tape cover.
That?
So and the guy came up to me and was like, so this is your layouts, right? And yes. So and then I went to him and said, if I may ask, what is it? And then he told me about the guy he met. And that was Markus. So he was actually making a demo tape for Markus, and he introduced us then.
Wow.
So and very quickly, so I invited him over to my place, which was kind of, I really lived out there. Like it wasn't like close to the city or not in the city or somewhere. It was really out there, like out in the village, but then out in the countryside. So I took him to my place, and then we had like an early session, and it kind of worked right away, and we started out. I don't know, so he was very much into it right away. So I was very amazed by his commitment. So every time I met people, and we were just making music in my place, they were like, even if they liked it, they were not really, getting into it. So I always had to go after them and ask them for the next appointment.
Right.
Whilst Markus was the first guy ever who was saying to me or suggesting that we should go on with this very project like soon, and he even then made like an appointment, a suggestion for an appointment like next week. And this impressed me way more than his like very interesting stick he had back then. So I was like, that's kind of futuristic thingy he has there. But the sheer fact that he was asking for another appointment,
right,
that was the thing that really got me into that.
Well, that's how I met the Liquid guys. I took a course at school, Rutgers, called Sound Through Tape, and all we did was splice tape from a big Moog synthesizer, and next to me was Richard McGuire, the bass player, and he said, we're having a big jam on campus, and I said, wow, I just bought a marimba. And
Great.
I said, okay, I'll come down that night, and we had this crazy jam, and then one thing led to the next, and then a couple of years later, he said, oh, Dennis, come on in, I want you to, do some recording for this record. Just record. I wasn't even in the band yet. And so it's amazing. I thought of that because of your story there with Markus.
Yeah.
And how'd you come up with the name, Centrozoon?
Centrozoon. Well, yeah. Well, that's another interesting story. So the name already existed before, and this was the one thing that Markus, was really, into.
Right.
So before that, I had with another friend, we had a band that the first name kind of was like Subsonic Experience, right? Subsonic. I mean, like the meaning is cool, and I have like the memories of it. So what it meant to us, but it was like so obvious. It's like a name. It's like so difficult to pronounce, like even in like for a native speaker, like subsonic experience doesn't really, there's no real flow with it. So, and then one day I went down to Amsterdam, right? And they speak Dutch, which is slightly different from German. And they like, and we were like standing in front of the main station, the train station, right?
Right.
The central station, and they write it like with double A, central,
Oh,
central.
okay. Right.
And I just like the look of it. That central, they would say in Dutch, right? And I was like, oh, that's a cool name, Central. And my friend wasn't so, he wasn't really convinced. He wasn't like, yeah, okay, for now. And then we were like, another day we were sitting like in my place, and he just opened up a book. It was like kind of a weird esoteric book about like tarot cards or something. You just opened it up.
That? So you picked it out, and then that was the name, right? You just
wait, and then he just spotted one word, and that was like, I don't even know how to pronounce it in English. Spermatozoon, like the sperm.
Okay.
And he was like, "Oh, how about that? That's a cool band name." I was like, "I'm not so sure of like spermatozoon, if that is the right good name." And then he was like, more like, I think you tried to like, you wanted to kid me or something. Okay, then use your name and just put it together to Centrozoon.
Oh, okay. That's pretty neat.
And then it's just interesting. And we were like actually looking for a name that really does not have a meaning. So we wanted to have something which just, doesn't really point out to something or mean something. But at the end, it has a meaning. So zoon or zone could be read like in Dutch as the sun.
Right.
Or in Latin, it would be like an animal, like the animal in the middle, so to say. But actually, it's not meant to have a meaning. That's sort of the story behind this funny name.
Well, I really like your record, Circular, and I really like the 217 series.
Oh, great!
Very nice. So
cool.
You recorded every show. This was an American tour you had.
Yeah, this was already in 2016.
Oh.
And this was the 20th anniversary tour of this band Centrozoon. So, I mean, like Centrozoon is a very interesting phenomenon. I mean, like it's actually, most of the time the project is completely on hold. I mean, like it doesn't do anything.
Right.
But like underneath, it's still there. It's still cooking. And then I meet people like you who then, come up with like kind of old stuff and then those people tell me then that this is one of their old time favorites and so on. And the funny thing is like, I mean, like you talk to me now like as a solo artist, but Centrozoon was always felt to me like my very project.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, like, although Markus really got into it and very intensely, and he was like he showed a lot of commitment, and he was really fascinated, and he had like a certain idea about it. I never thought about, or it never crossed my mind that I have to do something solo.
Right.
And I'm still thinking of like, bring it back to life somehow. Actually, I'm kind of dreaming of it, although it kind of like, and for example, those tours, they brought so much like new dynamic into this project. It's more like it's not even, I wouldn't even say it's like a pure band or something. For me, it's really more like an artistic or like an art project or something like that. And an art project which works with music, because normally you don't have this. You have like art, like fine art, or like people who do like art with noise.
Right.
And I feel that we do this kind of artistic approach you would like normally have more with fine art or abstract art or something, we have in Centrozoon, but still we we are kind of, you know, not really completely into the noise section. We are
Well,
kind
yeah,
of still working with a musical idea, you
right.
know.
Well, you're very creative, so you're like painting with sound almost. You know, you're sculpturing sound, you and Marcus, to create something, and then when it works, it's really beautiful. And then
Thank you
you can
so much.
also, and then you also have some parts where it's, you know, you need some noise to break it up a little bit in your sound, but everything really, you two really have really connected on in that project.
Yeah, it's great, and I would love to continue that. I mean, I don't know how it all will go on like from now. I mean, like touring, even for artists like Marcus, is becoming so difficult.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
And
imagine.
but on the other hand, like actually, like the biggest part of our fans or my fans, I mean, like they're all in, or like most of them, they're in the US. But
Yeah,
it's. I mean,
yeah, because he's very busy, it seems. You know, he's got the tuner band, he was doing stick band, but that's kind of like Tony Levin's like committed now with the King Crimson beat shows. So, but, and I had a great interview with Marcus too. He was one of the nicest guys I've met in music. I'll tell you.
yeah,
And so now, anyway, let's move on to some of your collaborations you've had. Like with I really like this record, Tabo Tabo Tango. That's
Tabo
beautiful.
Tago. Yeah. Okay.
Oh
Great.
man, it's great. You know what? It sounds like old school Tangerine Dream almost.
That's exactly what it is, or
How
what it
about that?
intended to be like. So in 2015, I think when Edgar Fröse died, a close friend of mine, like Leander Reininghaus, he came up to me, and I just moved over to Berlin like half a
Right.
year ago or something, and I was still like in the kind of process, I, you know, closing up stuff like back home, and then like creating a new life here. And he was one of the first guys who like then came up to me and asked me out for like a real project. And
Right.
he said, since like Fröse is now dead and he's not there anymore, and he knew that I'm kind of very much in this electronic stuff, and there's this other guy, Andreas von Garnier, who has like, he has all this big big pieces of gear in his studio. If we could do something in the way of Tangerine Dream, and then so we actually started to listen and kind of analyze the tracks, and although I thought I was like a very much of a fan, I learned so much about those tracks and what they did,
I
and we really
imagine.
went really note by note. We would kind
Hmm.
of, you know, deconstructing the pieces and then putting them together in order to make them playable for us,
Oh
and
wow.
and obviously like Tangerine Dream, they were like using those hardware machines like sequencers and to
Oh,
synthesize and
yeah.
stuff,
I love that
and I had to,
sequencer sound.
yeah, and I had to bring this idea how they worked like in real time. So you can see them that they're actually touching the knobs and putting like on and off like switches and
Oh
stuff.
yeah, yeah. Real
And
time
we
playing.
and this kind of influences the sound. So there's like, because they do this, it sounds like this. So, and you really have to keep that in mind. And we came up with this band, and the idea was like, uh, so our shows then consisted of like half of like, or the half of the show were like real Tangerine Dream pieces, which then turned over like in free improvs, and then going back to like a real Tangerine Dream piece,
Oh,
right?
how about, yeah, they definitely had that beautiful. I love those sequencer sounds. I mean, I grew up with that. Klaus Schultz and
Yeah,
Tangerine Dream.
he's
I mean,
brilliant.
those the real masters. And you did also with David Collar. Is that
Yeah,
how you pronounce it?
David Koller,
And
yeah.
Tim Tim Molzer. You did some music with. So as you've had a lot of collaborations now. It seems like with a lot of artists. It's really good to see.
I mean,
To
like,
hear.
let's face it. I mean, like, I'm in the wake of Markus Reuter, right? I mean, like, he introduces me to so many people. Like, I met like Tim Motzer by him, David Koller, Tim Bowness, all those people,
Wow.
right? But I mean, they all became close friends, and we came up with something, or we created something that only like the two of us could do.
Right, right.
And yeah, and I appreciate that a lot. I mean, that's something I kind of learned from Marcus. I mean, I learned a lot from him. And this one thing is like, so although it's very important to work on your own idea and become like an own personality,
Right.
in artistical terms, it's also important to work with others like closely,
Oh yeah.
because so it's I used to say it's not adding together like two characters or people or something. It's more like multiplying, right?
Right.
So uh, so there's like so much input, and like for both of us, and once you play with somebody, you kind of see yourself from the outside, and then
Mm. Oh yeah.
I am all of a sudden I am amazed by myself in the same way, or surprised, probably like my counterpart, like, and the
Yeah.
same way I guess that my counterpart will you know get like more like an outside view through
Yeah.
my way of listening and seeing it, and then contemplating it, and talking about it, and you
Now
know
you have a lot of releases on Bandcamp. Do you have physical releases of these records, or are they mostly digital? Um,
yeah, they're mostly digital, and this is really goes just purely back to it's a question of expenses, right?
yeah, that same here. I just put digital music out now. I don't get my money back. It's unless you have a real good connection, and it's hard these days. There's so much music out there, and then you got this AI out tools, and it's very complicated because there's so much to choose from the listener.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I wouldn't say that this is now the final model that will bring me through the next years, but I do think, and this is something again that is based on an idea that Marcus once had, and I wasn't sure about this back in the days. I think this was like in 2015 when I came
Right,
back from a tour in the US, and he suggested that I should release all of those recordings. And of course I was saying or thinking, I was like, I thought this is not going to work, just
right,
because it's so much material, and like the few releases I had out before, they didn't really work, either. So how could I? But I did it anyway, and it kind of became a thing.
oh,
Um,
okay,
so people now, I don't know, like it's more like a sort of a Netflix idea, if I may put it this way, right?
okay,
So it's a constant stream of things. I mean, it's not like that the album. So for example, let me say it this way around. So you may have noticed that I have this series of releases, which I actually call them so and so series. I think the
right,
most
right,
famous
right,
one is the Material series, like material,
right,
obviously, right? Again, the two A's, the C,
right, right,
they come from this Amsterdam Central Station. Again, however, so and I thought it was like it would be nice to make it like obvious, or like easy to understand that this is more like what I would call like a meta release, like a meta release. It's like you
right,
have
right,
like a lot of releases under the hood of one big name, and then under that you would have like the individual albums. I mean, I still would say, and they're all done with like the most attention I can put into that, and it's
right.
all
Huh.
this is all done with the same love. But still, I would say there are some like more like outstanding releases or big releases, like Elsewhere, for example, or
Right.
Heart or Collider
Right.
or
Listen to
Magnet
that.
or the one with David Collar. So these are like more like individual, like real ones. They don't belong to a series. But then I have all those recordings from the live sessions or like sessions with friends or studio
Right.
sessions, which I just understood that they are so good. For example, all the material we put out for Tabo Tago are actually jam sessions we did in the studio.
Oh, I see.
So
How about
and,
that? That
and
sounds
pardon?
sounds really good. Whatever you guys put together. I mean, I listened to it really. Some. I right away I clicked with it.
Great.
It was, and so maybe you could get a box set out someday. There might be a label that says, "I'd like to put this collection out of your music with your connection with Marcus." You never know, at some point.
Yeah. I mean, the
But
funny thing is, talking about label, I mean, like, since those days when I met Marcus, we worked together closely. So we have a firm, a company together.
yeah,
So the, so when Marcus is touring, this is also for my benefit because it all goes to the same like account, right?
right.
So we are. I mean, actually, I'm always really kind of not really comfortable saying that we are a label because we are not doing actual label work in a proper way, if I may say it this way.
Oh,
So
okay.
I would expect from like a decent label, I would expect more connections, more time to be spent on each album.
Yeah.
But we're going more and more into that direction. So that means, uh, so if somebody is to release like a box set or something about it,
But but
it would
but
be
I
ourselves,
but I
right?
think to really sell physical product now, I think you have to play live and sell it at the shows. I mean, that
That's
seems to be the only way these days, I
and
think.
then and then playing live becomes more and more difficult. I mean, like,
Right, exactly.
uh, so like when I go to the US, it's like always kind of you
It's a
know
lot of work. I
and
mean,
so only the visa is like it's like almost inaffordable. And
well, I
then
imagine.
like those shows I play, you know, I mean, I'm not complaining. I can play shows in the US. But compared to Marcus, I mean, like it's all way smaller. It's all more grassroots, as you would say. Like and I still only can do it with the help of a close friend, which is like George Bly. You may know him, right?
Right.
So he's the guy behind who makes it all possible, right?
Right, of course.
And
So what are you going to be doing now? What's your current project? Are you recording any new music, or you have plans for what are your plans for future recordings?
I mean, like, as a matter of fact, I'm actually mostly working on several projects like at the time. So right now, for example, one big thing I still have to work on, besides all the work I have to do for our label and our company.
Right.
So so there's like
Boy,
a day, sort of a day job to be done,
sounds like it. Yeah.
But besides that, there's, for example, recently I did like kind of a, like, how can I say it, like a test show, something. So I had the opportunity to play in a nice church here in Berlin,
Oh, very nice.
again with my friend Leander Reininghaus, and we came up with like a special light show, and we wanted to try that out in order to offer that to other venues. But in order to do that, you have to have it done first somewhere else,
Right.
ideally with some audience already, because if that's obvious that nobody is in the audience, the other venues, they will not book you, right?
Well, you
So
know
I
what
set up.
would be a
But
good venue for you guys would be maybe a planetarium show.
indeed, but
That
then
would
you
be
have,
perfect.
yeah, and we did that. So that, for example, so Leander and I, we played in a planetarium, and Ian Body and I, we also played in a planetarium. These were like both great venues.
Right.
So but it's really difficult to get into
I'm
in there. So
sure.
they're not like looking out. So there's just a line of musicians
There is.
who already understood that this is like an outstanding place to play, especially if you do music in the way I do.
Right.
So in order to convince them, you have to come up with some really like interesting material. And so this
And have
was
a
one
good,
thing
yeah. And you need
I'm
good
working on. Another
management,
thing,
you know, and
so in
everything.
November I will have a small tour again with Tabo Tago,
Okay.
and there's the idea to come up with a new release, which then would be probably like a CD or something. So this has to be done. So this is what I'm working on currently, and then like all the stuff that comes out like in between. So I have this small event series, sort of. How do you say this? Like, so we now have the chance, or we have the possibility to play like on a regular basis in a small venue or club here in
Oh,
Berlin.
okay.
Uh,
That's good.
and we always like it's always one. It's Rainer Frey. It's my friend Rainer Frey. It's me plus a guest.
Oh,
So
okay.
and the ideas, and this is the other series I have on my, it's like the polyphony series.
Right.
You'll find it on my Bandcamp account as well.
Right.
So you always have like great musicians plus ourselves, and the simple idea is we play, it's all improvised, and we record. This has to be like edited,
Oh, yeah,
and
of
then it
course.
has to be put out, and this is all the stuff that kind of fills all the gaps in between. So like once you're
Wow.
done with one thing, you just
Yeah.
you have to jump into the next one. So there's no break, right?
No end, right? Well,
Yeah,
that's
it
what you
is.
want. You're doing some creative, and plus you're painting, you did drawings. You're a very creative guy.
Thank you so much.
And so now, just send me like where we could find your music. I know we have Bandcamp, but if there's, I know I have your website. I mean, your website is really, really good. It's very detailed. I looked at it and said, boy, there's a lot of stuff here. It's great. So that's basically where we could find you, right? On your website and Bandcamp, right? For your music, your paintings, art.
Yeah, I mean, like I I really prefer, or like say I would really make people. So if they are really interested in my music, just go to my website,
Okay.
and on the website you'll find all the players and stuff. And if you don't want to be, confused by all the stuff that's on my
Right.
website as well, just go to the
Okay.
Bandcamp page, Bernhard Wöstheinrich .bandcamp.com, or that's difficult to keep in mind. So redundantrocker.com, as you can see down here. I could have just put it in here, right? Would have
Yeah,
been easier.
I'll put it on. I always put a detailed description in,
Yeah.
and I usually they'll make sure everybody can see it and listen to your music because it's fascinating and beautiful at the same time. So, Bernhard, it's been a pleasure speaking with you, and I'm glad you got on the line here all the way from Germany.
I mean, all the way from Germany. I'm still here in my
Yeah,
very
so
studio.
if you ever
But
come to
yeah,
if you ever get to New York or New Jersey, look me up.
yeah, I
I'm
mean,
about
like
an
New Jersey.
hour
Yes,
from New York. That's it.
I know. I mean, like George lives there, and it kind of. I mean, I would say it sort of became like a second home to me.
How about
Uh,
that?
and really, I mean, and I kind of it's really already feels familiar to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we would definitely we come by.
Come
We
by. I
can
have a
do
little
like
small
how about
studio.
how about having a living room concert at yours, because
That'd be
that's
great.
yeah that's
Anytime. Just give me
so
advance notice. We'll do it.
we'll do it.
Okay,
So
Bernard.
great.
Pleasure meeting you. Have a nice night.